Hello, everyone. We're here to introduce Dr. Adina Elfant. She's an undergraduate advisor. Before coming to CCSU, Dr. Elfant worked in a variety of roles at 4 other institutions in New York, Washington, D.C., Virginia, and Massachusetts. Over her 32-year career, she has acquired experience in new student programs, residence life, service learning, judicial affairs, career development, and of course, academic advising. She joined CCSU as the Assistant Dean in the School of Business in the fall of 2019 and was there until March of 2021 when she assumed the newly created Director of Undergraduate Advising position. She oversees the 4 school-based advising centers as well as Explore Central and work with a staff of 15 professional advisors. She has her bachelor's from Gettysburg College, her master's from New York University, and her doctorate from George Mason University. She is a first-generation college student, so she knows firsthand the importance of asking questions and utilizing your resources.
Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. So I do have a PowerPoint that I'm going to share my screen to share with all of you. And so when I do that, I'm not able to see you. So I'm going to need somebody there to kind of just interject when there's a question. Okay, don't feel like you have to wait. And I'm going to try to remember to pause a few times along the way and see if anybody has questions. I'd like to have this be a little bit interactive, but again, it's kind of awkward because I won't be able to see you when we get to some of those points. So just jump right in if anybody has questions, okay?
Yes.
All right.
Okay.
So let me start sharing my screen. And can you all see that?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay. So the topic that was assigned for today is navigating towards academic success. And so, in order to have that conversation and trying to help you on your way of doing that, we have to have a little bit of a conversation regarding academic success and what that is, what it looks like. And that's going to look differently to each individual person. And so I started off by just kind of looking at some definitions that are out there, and they all seem to have kind of the same general components for what academic success is. And so this is one that I just took from a publication that came out a bit ago, but it is still rather relevant. And so, academic success, as I had mentioned, it looks different for each person, and it also has multiple components. And so, you can look at achievement, you can look at learning objectives and achieving those learning objectives. You can look at what are the skills and the competencies that you pick up along the way. How satisfied you are with your own academic career is a part of academic success. And that's like a very, very subjective area, because what somebody might be very satisfied with might not be what would be satisfying to another individual, right? So, you can think about what your favorite subject is, and you might want to get an A in that class, whereas somebody else might really dread going to that class, and they might be happy just give me a C, let me get through this class, I need it for a prerequisite or whatever, and I just want to be on my way. So, that's just, obviously a very little example of what I'm talking about as far as the subjectiveness. And then obviously kind of post-college performance, right? So you're going through this university experience and you're thinking about academic success and what it is to you. And does a part of that include what it prepares you to do or what it enables you to do once you leave CCSU? And so kind of starting at the beginning with academic achievement, grades, honors, awards might all be a part of what that achievement is. Other than grades, because that one's a pretty obvious one, could somebody kind of share some other things that could be considered part of academic achievement if you're looking at honors and awards?
Making the dean's list.
Absolutely, making the dean's list or the president's list. Yep. What else? Is anybody involved with any,
Maybe applying for scholarships. Some scholarships are based on your GPA.
absolutely. So achieving, achieving scholarships. Yep. What about, is anybody involved in any co-curricular activities?
Any what activities?
Any co-curricular, any clubs or organizations on campus? And does anybody have any kind of a leadership role in that organization? You know, I mean, that could be,
SGA, Martin.
Yeah, so SGA, certainly. So, those can be considered pieces of academic achievement, right? We're looking at your college experience in a holistic way. Honor societies, obviously your grades, awards you might receive either from an academic department, but also from from some of the organizations that you might be involved with. If somebody is involved with athletics, if they're the captain of the team, I mean, all of those are achievements that people should be thinking about and conscious of. And so that was one piece of, right, what contributes to academic success. And then the next one that was listed on that first slide was achieving your learning objectives, right? And so again, everybody's going to have their own objectives for what they want to get out of their undergraduate experience. So, kind of moving you along in that direction when you're choosing your major, when you're thinking about your minor, your concentrations, any experiential activities that might be involved with, already embedded in your classes, or other things that you might want to do that kind of mesh well with your class experience. I mean, all of those can go towards achieving your ultimate learning objectives. And you may or may not know what your full learning objectives are at this point. It's very much a process, and you need to be patient with yourself if you're not quite at the point where you know exactly what it is you want to major in or what you're going to minor in if you need to do a minor. All right, it's going to come. It comes along the way. One of the other contributing factors to success, or if you think of it kind of like almost like a wagon wheel with academic success in the center and then different spokes on the wagon, is acquiring skills and competencies. And that again can be a lot of different things. And so at the university we have general education, right? So you have specific study areas and skill areas that the university has already determined should be kind of those core competencies that every student with a CCSU degree is going to have. So in that one, we really kind of structure that for you. What gives you satisfaction, right? We talked about some of the things that could be considered, part of that academic achievement, but what are some things that give you satisfaction when you think about your educational experience?
I think like getting closer to your goal, like, when you complete a year, that's when you're getting closer to graduation.
Yep, absolutely.
For me, it's my GPA level. If my GPA level is good, then throughout the school, then it makes me just keep going.
Makes you feel better about it. Okay. Others?
I think enjoying the topic that you're studying and learning about it, that'll motivate you. I mean, if you enjoy what you're learning, then hopefully the idea is that you're going to succeed at it.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting one. I agree with you wholeheartedly. And, often when I'm speaking with students or families at accepted students days or admissions events or things like that, or orientation, they talk about choosing a major. Some of them come in saying, this is what I want to major in because I've always loved that topic. Some come in saying, this is what I want to major in because I want a job doing X, Y, Z. And some people come in not having any idea yet of what they want to major in. And, for all of them, my response is pretty much the same in that, finding a major, finding something you're passionate about. Because as you were saying, when you're passionate about it, when you enjoy it, then then doing all the work that goes into being successful in it isn't as much of a chore, right? Because you're interested in that topic. I remember when I was getting ready to think about dissertation topics with my PhD, that was the advice that my advisor gave me. He's like, find something you love, not just like, but something that you love, because you're going to need to just immerse yourself in it for the next couple of years. And so, it's the same idea, just transferring it to choosing your major and figuring out what it is that you want to study. Sometimes, I think somebody had mentioned kind of, moving towards your degree, getting closer to graduation. Sometimes just doing your best, right? So I am one of those individuals that just really struggled with foreign languages. Okay. I was never a straight A student as an undergrad. But I mean, I do have a brain in there. I can use it. But when it came to foreign language, it just did not work with my brain. And so I remember taking the college I went to had a foreign language requirement. And my other classes, I really strived to get those A's. And in that French class, man, I just wanted to get the C- so I could satisfy the requirement. So, doing the best that you can in a particular area can also give you a lot of satisfaction. And so, again, as far as not being too hard on yourself, right? I would love for all of you to be striving to get A's in all of your courses, but also to recognize that that might not be in the cards for you, depending either on just your aptitude. And for me, I'm sure part of it was I struggled with French, so I didn't want to put the time into French because it was hard. I couldn't see the results that I saw in other classes, and so it kind of became this cycle. But again, there's just all different ways to measure your satisfaction and what that's going to be like. So before I pull up the slide for your post-college performance, what do you think are some things that you might consider as far as post-college experiences that would contribute to your feeling like you had academic success as a student here at the university?
Internships that
Okay.
will help you, kind of like get a job later on after you graduate.
Yeah, yeah. So getting a job after graduation, sure. What else? Not everyone's going to get a job when they graduate. What are some of the other things people might be doing?
Some students might need their masters.
Okay, so possibly graduate school. Uh-huh. Others?
Well, I'd like to go to graduate school too.
Okay. So yeah, again, there's lots of different ways to think about your post-college, right? So after you leave here and thinking about what experiences you might be involved with and how that might contribute to feeling of that academic success. So, some students, sure, they're going to be looking for a job, they're going to be looking for graduate school. Some people might be going into the military. They might feel that that is their path going forward. Or maybe they're going to take a year or 2 or 3 and do some volunteer service. Right? There's Peace Corps, there's AmeriCorps, there's a VISTA program. There's tons of opportunities to do national service or international service. And so for some students, that might be their path after graduation. And for some, they're going to take that time and they're going to try to travel, right? Because it's, in a sense, it's kind of an easy time to do it before you've started graduate school, before you've started getting your career on track. So there's lots of different things that are going to be coming up for people after they graduate. So, we talked a little bit about academic success, but then how do you get there, right? So we're talking about academic success and all the pieces that go into it, but how do you get to that academic success? How do you deal with all of those little pieces of the wheel that we just spoke with? And so, I try to keep things pretty simple. And so planning, preparation, and perseverance. Right, the three steps that are going to hopefully get you there. So what do you think some of the planning phases might include?
with classes or for the entire, I don't know, can you be more specific?
Well, so, we're talking about achieving academic success as an undergraduate. And so planning. And so, yeah, so I'm focusing more on, my background's academic advising. So, that's definitely the approach that I took as far as, navigating your academic success, is through that advising process. So what do you see as some of the planning stages for academic advising?
Well, knowing what the career you're trying to achieve is like, what does it need? Like,
I'm sorry, what
more schooling? Does it need more, specific classes?
Yep, what career path you want, and then how do you get there? Kind of the begin with the end in mind approach.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Finance is part of the planning process too.
What is?
Planning, how you're gonna finance it, applying to scholarships.
Sure. Yep. I mean, I'm assuming that since folks are already, at least as my understanding, the folks that are viewing this are already students. So hopefully some of those pieces have been figured out. And I'm thinking more at the micro level as far as the real specific pieces of getting you forward, getting you ready for this. And so, for me, as far as sharing with you, looking up registration time. Okay, look up your specific registration time. So hopefully everybody realizes that if you go to the registrar's webpage, you can click on the fall registration link, and then it has that tool where you can put in the number of completed credits you have, and it will tell you when you register, the day and time that you register. And I think it does give the instruction there to make sure you're looking at the credits that are completed. It is not counting the credits that you have in progress. All right, and so just make sure. And so you can look at that easily by going to your degree evaluation. There's a little box on there that has asked if you want to include courses in progress. If you remove the check mark, it will then tell you how many credits you have completed, or just go to your transcript and look at, at the end of last semester where you've got the line that has your GPA. It'll also tell you how many credits you have completed at this point in time. And so that's going to tell you when you're registering. And so once you know that, you can start working backwards a little bit as far as getting these other pieces together. So, while you're looking at your degree evaluation, make sure you know who your advisor is, right? Who your primary advisor is. And so when students come into the university, they are assigned to an advisor in one of our 5 academic advising centers. And I have those listed up here, right? So depending on whether you are part of class or business or education, professional studies, CEST, or Explore, you each have your own advising center. And within there, you have your own advisor. So every entering student is working with a professional advisor. Once you reach sophomore status, you should have a faculty member listed as your primary advisor, unless you are in the School of Business or in many of the majors over in the School of Education and Professional Studies. If you're a pre-major, you stay with the professional advisors. Once you reach major status, then you'll get your faculty advisors. So just make sure you know who your advisor is. A lot of the advisors send out emails to the students letting them know, okay, it's time to schedule an appointment. And so, as I said, the professional advisors do that. So if you're advised by one of them, you hopefully have gotten that email. And if you're sophomore level or above, then most of you would be working with faculty, unless you're in particular programs where you're a pre-major. And hopefully you've gotten some communication from them also regarding scheduling appointments with them. The other piece that you need to check as far as your planning is, do you have any holds on your records? Okay, because I've seen way too many students who get to the point where they think that they're ready to register, and then there's a hold on their record and they can't register. And it's super frustrating for the students. And so just make sure you're planning ahead and you're looking at those things. And also have realistic expectations of when you're meeting with your advisor. So, advisors will talk to you about what requirements you have. They'll suggest courses for you. If there's other resources involved, like if finance is an issue, they might be referring you to financial literacy if you need help filling out a FAFSA, or over to financial aid of the bursar's office. So they make referrals also. And if you need to raise your GPA, right? If you're in a program that has a specific GPA requirement, or you're in a pre-professional program where you need a certain GPA in order to apply to the major, they can help you strategize on how to do that, because you can repeat some classes, a certain number of classes, to raise your GPA. So they can help you with that. The advisors are not going to register you for classes though. So you need to, just go into it knowing that. And I'm not going to talk much about registration today, because I do know on your schedule, I think in 2 weeks, maybe, you've got Patrick Tucker, who is going to be doing a session for you on registration. And I think it's super exciting. We have a new online registration tool called Civitas, so a new scheduling tool. And I think it's going to make registration so much easier for students. So I'm really excited to see that roll out this coming term. So as far as, those are some of the planning pieces. Now we're talking about the preparation. So there are still students, certainly sophomores, hopefully not much further than sophomores, that still need to take placement exams, right? So if you're one of those, please make sure you take those. You should be checking your degree evaluation on a regular basis to see what courses you have outstanding, what requirements you have. If you've taken courses elsewhere, if over the winter break, maybe you took something somewhere else, make sure you've sent that transcript in, okay? Or even if you took something last summer and you didn't get around to sending the transcript in the fall, make sure you get that transcript into the registrar's office and the emails up there. Course offerings are listed on the website, obviously, and so you should come up with a list of courses and come up with a list of alternates. And then know when you know your time commitments, right? Know what you have. So I think somebody said that they were a part of SGA. Was that correct from earlier on? Okay. So do you guys have a standard meeting each week where you need to attend?
Do you have a standard meeting at SGA? Yes.
Yes.
Okay, when is it?
Usually on Wednesdays, they meet for Sunday.
Every Wednesday.
What time?
What time?
3:05.
3:05, you said? 3 to 5? I couldn't hear the time.
3:05.
I think 3:05.
Okay.
3:05 until.
Okay, so I mean, that's like a perfect example. So with this new scheduling tool, it gives students the opportunities to schedule breaks. So you know that you have SGA every Wednesday at 3:05. So you can block that off. And so none of the schedules that get generated for you to look at are going to have a class that would conflict with that 3:05 meeting, because you've scheduled that in as a break. If any of you have part-time jobs on campus or part-time jobs off campus, and you have a set schedule that you can't adjust because your classes, or you don't want to adjust, right? You work every Friday at the Apple Store over in the mall, so you can block out Fridays so that you will not get scheduled for classes on those days. And again, Patrick's going to go into much more detail, but you're going to be able to enter all the classes, kind of put them in a shopping cart, so to speak. And then the program will generate all the possible schedules that would work given the breaks that you've identified. So that's why I say know your schedule and know when you'll need breaks in your schedule before you go and start talking with your advisor or start, planning to do your actual registration. If students are still not quite sure some of the things that they need to take, make sure you're checking your degree evaluation. It is so important. And there's so much information there that I don't think students even realize all the things that they can do, what a powerful tool it is. So it has, your major, your name, your class standing, who your primary advisor is, It'll show you what requirements you have left, what you've got completed. Do you have any seniors over there?
Yes.
Okay, have you guys all filled out your graduation application already?
Yes, last spring.
Excellent. Okay, so yeah, so graduation applications, a lot of students will start filling them out a year in advance, and that's what we kind of ask you to do. But if you haven't already done it, no fear, you can still do it. We're not going to stop you from graduating. But there's a link right on the degree evaluation that shows like file your degree, your graduation application, click here. If you have requirements that are outstanding, use the hyperlinks to see what courses satisfy those requirements. And you can also use the what if function, which if you haven't used that yet, is really a great tool for students who might be thinking about changing a major or maybe double majoring or trying to choose their minor, because it lets you do kind of those hypotheticals. And when you click the process button, it will take all the classes that you've taken and realign them into those new degree programs that you've identified. So you can see how that might either set you back or maybe put you forward as far as getting you closer to graduation. So make sure you're checking your degree evaluation, not only before you register for classes, but make sure you do it after you register also, because sometimes you think a course is going to satisfy a requirement and you don't go back and actually check the degree eval to see whether or not it got plugged into the spot you thought it was. So always go back and double check on that. Oops, wrong way. So perseverance, just a couple of things to keep in mind just to kind of wrap up, and then, any questions you might have. I mentioned earlier about repeating courses. So you are able to repeat courses, and what you need to know is that one, it's the most recent grade and credits that will go towards your GPA. And you can do it for the first 17 credits. So after 17 credits, you're averaging grades. But for the first 17 that you repeat, you're in a sense, you're kind of replacing it. The most recent is going to count. Now that can be incredibly helpful if, maybe your first semester or at some point along the line, you really struggled with the class and you didn't do as well as you're able to do. All right. And let's say you failed the course. So an F in your GPA really has a very tremendous impact on your GPA, right? And so you'd want to repeat that class. And once you do that, if you repeat it and you get a B in the course, not only is the calculator taking that F out, but it's putting in the B. And so you'll see a significant improvement in your GPA when you start doing things like that. The piece you need to be aware of, as I said, is the most recent grade is the one that's going to count. And so if you got a C- in a class and it was a prerequisite where you needed a C, and so you're repeating the course, and the second time around something comes up that semester, you end up missing a lot of classes or what have you, and it looks like you're going to get like a D or maybe even fail the class. That D or F is then going to be used to calculate your GPA, not the C- that you took earlier and you're trying to raise. So you just need to know it can go either way, where it can raise or lower your GPA. And then also just to keep in mind that certain programs have other applications that need to be completed and a GPA that you need to meet in order to apply. And so that's kind of where, yeah.
I have a question again about what you just said.
Yeah.
Are you saying that if the student decides to repeat a course in which they received a C, but then they end up getting a D the second time around, the D is what stays?
Correct.
Wow.
Now, that is something that actually got voted on this year at Senate. So I think in the fall, they're going to start just using the higher grade. But the way the policy is now, it's the more recent. Yep. So that's important to know. And so, and again, this is where it's really important to be talking with your advisor. So if you were to find yourself in that situation where the second time around your grade's going to be worse, then I would go and talk to your advisor about the pros and cons of withdrawing from the class. right? Better to have the W than to pull your GPA down. And then, try again another semester to repeat that class and get the GPA that you need to have for whatever requirement or for whatever reason you're repeating the class. Yep. So, the withdrawals, you don't want to see a ton of them on a transcript. But I think that they can be used very strategically to help a student either protect or raise their GPA. Obviously, the withdrawal doesn't count for your GPA, but it can prevent you from potentially pulling it down with some poor grades. And so, yeah. And so then, just sticking with it. So if you, I'm thinking like the education programs in particular, I think you need 2.7 or 2.8 to apply to those programs. And so, if you don't have it right now and you are like, I want to be a teacher, that is the path that I want to go, then see what you can do. Work with your advisors. Are there courses that you can repeat? Are there things that you can do in order to raise that GPA? And that's where the perseverance comes in, because it can be frustrating. It can cause it to take longer, but sometimes that's what you're going to need to do if you're set on that endpoint. So other questions that you might have, the slide earlier showed you where the different advising centers are. Explore Central and CLASS are over here in Villa de Loreto. CEST is over on the first floor of the hub, Applied Innovation Hub. School Business, second floor over in Vance Academic. And who did I miss? SEPS is over third floor Barnard. So undergraduate advising, our department, as far as Montez and I, like we're over here in the same suite as Explore Central. So we're over in Villa de Loreto on the first floor. And so you can call the main line and get to one of us or one of the other advisors if you have quick questions that you just need some help with. And then there's also our advising email, which gets checked daily. And so that's also a way to, to communicate with us. On the advising webpage are all the advisors and the majors they work with and the advisors' emails. And that's really the best way to try to reach the advisors because, especially in the busy times, they're with students, so they're not going to be answering their phone. So my suggestion would be to send emails to them because in between appointments, when they have time, they'll respond to a quick email. It's faster doing it that way than for them to listen to a voicemail message and start constructing a reply. So that's what I got for you as far as navigating towards your success. What questions do you have for me?
I have a question.
Yeah.
How do we, how does, the preparation and everything and the listing and everything is awesome and great.
Uh-huh.
But how does that come into play when you're neurodivergent? When you have a person who's neurodivergent, like a student who is on the autism spectrum or has ADHD, how does that fit into their mentality and how they work with day-to-day life?
Right. You know what? I mean, everybody approaches things differently, right? Whether you're somewhere on the spectrum or not, right? Everybody has their way of that they have figured out over the years of going through school of what works for them. And what I say to all the students is it's also knowing your resources, right? And knowing how to and where you can get assistance if you need it and figuring out what works. And so, to that student, I would ask, do you have accommodations on file with the university? Are you taking advantage of the services that are available either through the Learning Center or through the Writing Center or, student disabilities, which I know they're renaming their office to something else, which is much more appropriate. And I can't think of what it is yet or when it goes into effect, but you know what I'm talking about. So, I think the answer is the same for everybody as far as knowing your resources and taking advantage of your resources. Other questions? Yeah, all right. Has everybody looked up when they register?
Not yet.
My advisor emailed me today, so.
Okay.
Well, they don't need pins anymore, right?
They
Pins
do
are no
not.
longer needed?
Yes, we do not have pins. I would still strongly recommend that you meet with an advisor because my concern with them taking away pins is that you know, you can pretty easily see when there's a prerequisite for a course, but students aren't always, they're looking at their degree evaluation and they're not always looking at curriculum paths that might be available for a major, which maps it out semester by semester, year by year. And so while there might be different courses that you can choose from in a given semester, the department might have it mapped out in a specific way because things aren't necessarily offered every semester or maybe it's in every other year, maybe it's a fall spring thing. And so you can't just look at the degree evaluation, or I don't think it's in your best interest to just look at the degree evaluation and see where do I have blank spots and what can I fill in. I think coming up with a list of classes and then going and talking with your advisor is always going to be your best bet because they're going to have a better sense of what the availability is. And my concern is, students come in, many students come in thinking, okay, I'm going to take care of my college career is going to be a 4-year process. And sometimes if you're taking something out of sequence, it can easily add a semester or even add a year. And so I don't want to see students, kind of falling into that trap. My understanding from folks who have been at the institution a lot longer than I have is that quite a while ago, they did not require pins. And unfortunately, what they started to see was that the amount of time that it took students to graduate was longer than they wanted it to be. And so then they started using pins many years ago to make sure that students were meeting with advisors or with faculty advisors and making sure they were taking classes in the right order and the sequence that they were supposed to do it. And that brought down the amount of time it took a student to graduate. And now the pendulum's kind of going back to the other way again of, how can we make this as easy for students as possible, right? So it's like this balancing act of trying to, not have any barriers for the students so that they can register, but also, trying to do the best that we can to make sure that students graduate in the time frame that they're thinking they're going to graduate in or that they want to graduate in. So I always recommend go talk with your advisor. And when you're with them, you can also, you don't have to just focus on, next fall semester. You can sit with them and, you don't have what courses are available, but you can certainly look at, okay, what are you thinking for fall? What are you thinking for spring? To get some ideas. Or go search the CCSU website for curriculum paths, PATHS. And those typically have it mapped out semester by semester.
And sometimes if students have to repeat courses, that can push their graduation date too.
It can.
It might not be offered.
Right. It might not be offered. And if students sometimes they think, okay, well, I didn't do as well as I wanted to in this class, and so I'm going to take it somewhere else over the summer so that I can keep progressing. So you can do that, take class elsewhere, and have that transfer in order to meet the GPA requirement that you need to go on and take the next class. But know that that's not going to impact your GPA here. The credits will come in, but not the grade in the sense that it would impact your GPA. They would look at the grade and say, okay, you didn't do as well as you needed to here, but when you took the class elsewhere, you did meet that threshold. So yes, you can go ahead into the next class. You met the prerequisite.
Well, I think there's no more questions. Thank you for joining us today and for informing us about academic advising.
You're very welcome. Good luck, everybody. You know where I'm located. You know where Montez is. You got our email. And, just pop by or shoot us an email or give us a call if you have any questions.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
All right, enjoy the rest of your lunch.
Okay.
Have a nice day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.